Looney Tunes move from hell. On December 15, 2024, this inmate breached containment through the novel method of chewing a large hole through her own abdomen and burrowing through it. Responding personnel described it as a Looney Tunes move from hell. It should be noted that this escape occurred through a mechanism the agency does not currently understand. The inmate remained at large for approximately 40 hours, at which point she was located inside the facility, not in her cell, but in the cell of inmate 17, the Harlequin/Arlecchino. She was quickly apprehended and escorted to her own cell. The knot, which is humanoid in form, approximately 8 feet tall and very slender, with cream-colored skin, long white hair, and 8 round eyes. Her eyes are black and veined with pale silver. Her hands are immensely large and dexterous. She has been observed to use them to burrow. However, she primarily knits utilizing the more primitive, hand-knotting method, from which her name derives. She used any materials she is given, and any she can find herself. Her cell is full of these projects. It should be noted that the knotwitch's smile frequently induces hysteria. She is reasonably considerate and makes an effort to withhold smiles from staff, but fails from time to time. This inmate is difficult to contain, but largely consents to containment. When she breaches, the agency has no idea where she goes. While the site of her throne has been canvassed heavily during her breaches, efforts to locate her during these times have been unsuccessful. It should be noted that upon discovery, this inmate was arguing with inmate 17 about the latter's stepson. At this time, the agency was not aware that these inmates had any relationship or that inmate 17 had a stepson. Based on the content of the argument, however, the agency has identified the nature of their relationship and the identity of the stepson in question, inmate 52, Surreal, currently incarcerated in Ward 2. The precise nature of the argument was difficult to determine, since both parties argued in 6 different languages, 2 of which remain unidentified. However, it is the organization's opinion that this inmate was asking 17 to help the stepson escape from his cell. For many reasons, the entirety of this situation constitutes an emergency. Under these extraordinary circumstances, an immediate intervention was scheduled with the agency's specialized interview team. The contents of the interview can be found below. The interviewer would like to note her recommendation to schedule an interview with inmate 52 as soon as possible. I have always loved broken things. This is why all of my children are broken. Broken things long for wholeness and they long for order. I am the warden of order, so they long for me. My web is order, so they long to serve and maintain it. They serve it best by destroying the web rippers. Most web rippers are whole. Things that are whole do not understand what it means to be broken. They cannot understand that brokenness does not need repair, only love. They cannot understand that monsters do not need to be made unmonstrous. They only need a purpose. There is no greater purpose than maintaining order. My broken children mend the broken web, sometimes with stitches, sometimes with knots, sometimes with the sinews of those who were once whole. My strongest son always knots the broken strands together with sinews. He is my bravest, my brightest, and my most broken. And he wanted a child of his own. I did not want this. I do not believe a monster should have a child because children, even broken children, fear monsters. When I told him this, my broken son found a broken child who told him that all parents are monsters. I could not help but let him have her. But long before my most broken son found his broken daughter, I met a little boy named Marley. Marley was always at my mall. I lived beneath it, and so I knew everything that happened to everyone who entered. Marley spent so much time there. That is how I knew that he was broken. I love broken things. Inside my mall, I made a toy store. Very small, very narrow. Tucked in the very back. A a place that only broken things would ever notice. I filled my shop with other broken things, toys and books and trinkets that were battered and broken but loved, just like my children. My most broken son made toys too. Such beautiful things. Monstrous, but so beautiful. Just like him. Marley always came into my store. He liked the books with battered covers and broken spines. Books were his favorite, so I made more for him. Some he ignored, some he loved, some he found frightening. One day I made a book especially for him to find. I made it about me so that he would understand me before we ever met. I left it on his favorite shelf and named it The Eyes in Mother's Heart. The day he found it, I could tell he had been crying. It was a short book. He read it twice through his tears. I watched from the holes in my walls, the ones I always used to watch my children. I could tell the book frightened him, which was disappointing but expected. Preparation, even the kind that frightens you, is always better than a lack thereof. When he finally set the book aside, I knocked on the wall. I did that because it is what I put in the book. Mother always knocks first. He jumped, but even so I saw the comprehension in his eyes. The fear and the wonder, and the hope. I had already known Marley was broken, but that hope proved just how very broken he was. And I love broken things. I knocked again, more loudly this time, and let him catch a glimpse of my face through the hole. Fear swallowed his hope and he ran. But he came back. I knocked again. I watched him steel himself and approach the wall. His nerve almost failed him, but then he knocked. I knocked back. I smiled through the hole as he jumped. "Hello, Marley," I said. "Hello, Mother Spider," he answered. That is how we began. Marley was very lonely. Most broken things are deep in their hearts. Like all lonely people, he was desperate to talk. And so we talked. Marley told me that he was always at the mall because he was a half-orphan. That's what he called himself, a half-orphan. And his mother worked at the mall. She wouldn't let him stay home alone, and he had no friends to speak of. So she brought him along to work. He wasn't allowed to stay in the store where she worked, so she cut him loose to wander the mall. He didn't mind. The mall was his favorite place because it was where he spent a great deal of time with his father. After he told me about his father, I asked him why he had been crying. "The Christmas train out there," he told me. Looking at it was too much. Even as the words left his mouth, the cheerful little whistle echoed through the mall. When I looked at it, I remembered riding it when I was little. And I remembered the way my parents would always smile and watch me. How it felt like the train was going so fast and everything in the mall was golden and bright. Felt like magic. Like real magic. I haven't felt that way, not even close, since my dad died. And tonight, when I was watching little kids ride the Christmas train while their parents smiled and watched, I knew I'd never feel like that again. He wiped his eyes. But I guess I was wrong. Because reading your book and talking to you feels pretty magical. He kept talking. I love it when broken things trust me. He explained things about his mother, how she loved him but was terrible, cloying and possessive, but how he sensed her rejection of him on a fundamental level. How she couldn't stand him, especially not after his father died, but how she couldn't let him be, either. "I'm glad she brings me here, though," he told me. "Part of the reason I like it here so much is because after I spend time here, I dream of a better, happier world where my mom is nice and my dad is still alive. I know it's stupid, but the dreams feel real. It's worth all of this and all of Mom's shit to have those dreams. There is a reason Marley dreamed of a better, happier world. These dreams were not dreams, but glimpses of another life. The web once maintained 7 parallel columns, of which 4 now remain. There is hierarchy among the parallels, as there is among all things. Your parallel was the lowest on the hierarchy until the web burner began his work. The parallels are very similar but not identical, much in the way the two eyes in your head are very similar but not identical. Like your eyes, the parallels are part of a greater whole which they serve together. I chose my mall because it is a nexus, a circus in the ancient sense of the word, which is to say a place of intersection. The place where the mall once stood has always been a place where all 7 parallels meet. It was a perfect place to build a throne, so that is what I did. The parallels have always dreamed of each other. When you spend time within a circus, these dreams touch you, and then you yourself dream of the similar but not identical lives lived by your parallels. My Marley, my broken Marley, lowest in his hierarchy, lived in a world without his father. So did 2 of his parallels. But his final parallel, the parallel highest in the hierarchy, lived in a world where his father still lived. It was of this parallel that my broken Marley dreamed. I did not tell him this at first. I'm sure you can imagine why, but I've been wrong before even when I am sure, so I will explain as best I can. This parallel has always been darker and brighter, a place of constant flux, of creation and destruction that the other parallels cannot comprehend. There is order here but no balance. Love prevents the balance. Love is the great creator, and it is the great destroyer. Love overwhelms this parallel. It is why I love it here. But it is, and will remain, a darker, brighter world. If you could shift instead into a better, happier world, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you shift into any world that offered you something you thought you would never have? Or in Marley's case, never have again? I love broken things. Love saves the world. Love also destroys it. When you love something, its pain becomes yours. Imagine how much greater your pain would be, knowing you held the solution to your loved one's pain, but knowing also that you could never give it. Instead of telling him that his dreams were real, I saw him through the eyes in my heart and made sure he knew. The way to make Marley know that I saw him was to speak to him. We had many conversations. He would sit against the wall in my shop and we would speak together through the holes. He spoke of his mother and his father and of his friend Rebecca. I knew Rebecca. I knew everyone who came into my mall. Like Marley, Rebecca was an orphan. Unlike Marley, she was whole. One day, Marley's mother humiliated him and hurt him so badly that he ran into my store, sobbing incoherently. His pain was immense. It weighs on me still, suffocating my heart. You must understand how deeply his pain cut me. You must understand that is why I offered him a glimpse of the first parallel. You must not blame him, not for this or anything he did after. It was my fault. I violated order. I ripped the web. I opened a tunnel and walked him through. Together we crossed the circus. As we walked, I told him the rules. Don't look over there. Stay out of the flowers. Don't take anything offered to you. Don't tell anything your name. Take nothing at all. Leave nothing at all. Then we reached the first parallel. The mall is my throne in every parallel. I knew and know everything that happens inside it and when. That is why I knew the other Marley and his family were inside the mall in the first parallel. I took my broken Marley to see them. They were all there together, healthy and whole and happy. When my Marley saw them, it was like a weight lifted off him. For the first time, he was sparkling, bright, and whole. They're all here? He asked me. My dad and my grandma? And my mom is happy. Yes, I said. Then why can't I stay here? Why can't I be here? Because you already are. Sure enough, as I intended, the Marley of the first parallel emerged to join them. He was whole and happy, like the family, not broken like my Marley. My poor broken Marley was inconsolable. I took him back to the 7th parallel, and grieved to see the weight return to his shoulders, the darkness to his face. Do you understand now what I meant when I said I have been wrong even when I was sure I was right? I was sure that seeing his father again would make Marley happy. Instead, it broke his heart. Things that are broken cannot be fixed. They can only be worked within. Marley did not come back to me for days. When he did, he had questions. I had answers, of course. But my answers are not the kind that broken children want. Why can't I go there? Because you already are there. There cannot be two of you in a single parallel. It would collapse. Then why can't we share? Can't you put him to sleep or hide him in the circus sometimes, or you cannot be where you do not belong. You belong in your parallel. He belongs in his. This is the way of things. This is my web. This is order. He didn't answer me. I did not expect him to. He left again and did not return for many more days. When he did, he brought his friend Rebecca. Together, they crept into the tunnel to the first parallel without me. I pretended not to see, but of course I did. I see all my children through the eyes in my heart. I kept watch over them to see what they would do, to see if they would simply watch or if they would rip the web. They did not rip the web. They only watched as spiders do. They learned as children do. They plotted as only the broken can. I know everything and everyone in my mall. That is how I knew that Rebecca had no family in the seventh parallel. That is how I knew that in the first parallel, her family had no Rebecca. In the seventh parallel, Rebecca lost her family. In the first parallel, the family lost their Rebecca. I knew what they wanted to do. I knew what they were going to do. I did not love Rebecca as I love Marley, but I loved her in the way mothers love those whom her children love. So when Rebecca, who had no family, crossed the parallels to join the family that had no Rebecca, I closed all the eyes in my heart. It was a violation of the order, and it ripped the web terribly. But I allowed it. And when my bravest, most broken son came to hunt them just as I'd taught him to do, I stopped him. I am ashamed to admit what happened after, because all of it is my fault. I love broken things. Love is the great destroyer. After Rebecca of the seventh parallel slid into the emptiness left by Rebecca of the first parallel, Marley came to see me again. He said nothing of Rebecca or the first parallel. Nothing at all. Our conversations resumed as they always had. Sometimes he crept through the circus to the first parallel, but only to visit Rebecca. I allowed this. He took it no further. Finally, I began to breathe more easily. Of course, that is when he struck. "Mother Spider," he said, "you told me there can only be one Marley in each parallel. This is true. What if I switch spots with another Marley?" My heart ceased to hear this, even though I felt no surprise. "That is an abomination, Marley. It is a horror. It would make you a horror. Who would know? You wouldn't. Rebecca joined her family in the first parallel, and you didn't know. I did know. Then why didn't you stop us?" "Because of love," I wanted to say. Instead I said, "Because that is different. Wrong, entirely, terribly wrong, and it ripped the web. But this would be much more. This would be destruction." He refused to believe me. We fought. He stormed off. It made every eye in my heart shed tears. He was so broken. I loved him so much. I already knew what was going to do, and I already knew I did not have the strength to stop him. I closed the eyes in my heart when he crept through the circus to the first parallel. I listened but did not act as he found the other Marley. I turned away as he lured the other Marley through the circus to the seventh parallel, to this darker, brighter world. I told myself he would change his mind as he abandoned other Marley in my toy store. I smiled through silent tears when he did not, because I felt how his heart soared. When someone you love is truly happy, you cannot grieve anything they've done to achieve it. I wept to feel his joy as he joined the family in the first parallel. But I ached for the lost Marley, the whole and happy child who woke up in a better, happier world with his family around him, and went to sleep that night, sobbing in a darker, brighter world he did not understand. I ached for him in all the years that followed, for his pain and confusion, for the way he could not fit in here, for the telltale signs that alert spiders and flies to web rippers, the caustic stench, the inability to belong. Even the flies sense invaders from other parallels, and the flies here sensed that he was not one of them. My bravest, most broken son longed to destroy both Marleys. But I could not steal the joy from my broken Marley, and I could not steal what little was left from this other Marley. Sometimes my Marley crept back through to this parallel. He didn't know why, but I did. I always saw him through the eyes in my heart. I saw that he suffered quietly in the first parallel, not for lack of love, but for lack of belonging, for struggling to be in a place that he did not truly belong, to get away from the people who knew without knowing that he was not one of them. That is why he came back to the seventh parallel, to feel earth that truly knew him, to breathe the air of home, to see eyes that recognized him as one of their own. I did not stop him. I know what it means to long for home, but I paid dearly for my kindness. We all did. The way my broken Marley ripped the web was terrible. My children could not fix it. Even I could not knit or knot it together, not with dreams or wishes or wires or sinews. No matter what we did, the whole remained and grew. My best and most broken son begged me to mend it. My husband did too. But mending it would mean the death of my sweet broken boy, and I could not. I could not. I cannot. I was sure that was the end, that the hole would grow until he died, that we would manage as best we could until then. But I have been wrong before, no matter how sure I am. I am not the only one who loves broken things. The daughter of my most broken son loves broken things too. Of course she does. After all, she loves her father. This daughter grew up to love the other Marley. My son was furious. You know how fathers can be. He insisted that spiders do not belong with flies. I reminded him that love is the primary power in this parallel. Love creates and love destroys. I told him to hold off until he knew what their love would do. In the way that the parallels are similar but not identical, my broken Marley found my granddaughter's parallel in the better, happier world. He loved her fiercely, but she did not love him so fiercely. That is because in her heart of hearts, she was better and softer, just like her world. My broken Marley, he who encompassed the first and last, the highest and lowest, was not better and softer. He was, and remains, darker and brighter. He did not belong there, and so in the end, they did not belong together. I will not tell you what my broken Marley did when he learned this. That is not for you to know. After it was done, he came back through the circus to find me. He found the toy shop, now in dark ruins. He followed the instructions in the book I made for him so many years before. I answered. A mother always answers. Is she here? He asked me. I pretended not to understand. You know what I mean. My father was dead here and alive there. Now she's dead there. Is she alive here? He was so broken without her. I love broken things. When you love something, you cannot deny them what they need. Yes, I told him. The right one, the one you were meant for, the one as dark and bright as you, is here. He smiled. I could not. All I could do was tell him, but my boy, my darling broken son, so are you. He did what I knew he would do, and in this way he made the parallels echo once again. Everything echoes. The web echoes. The knots within and without echo. Knots are the physical manifestation of echoes, similar but not identical, singing to each other, influencing each other, changing each other, molding themselves around each other to form a cohesive whole. Everything in this world echoes and is an echo. Everything here in your pantheon is echoing as we speak. Everything you have heard has already happened and will happen again. It will not be identical, but it will be similar. That is the way of things. Not circles, but parallels growing into columns and supporting a greater whole. This is the essence of order. You think you serve order. You are wrong. Do you understand the purpose of a fever? The purpose of a fever is to save the organism it serves at any cost. Fevers are painful. Fevers inflict damage. Sometimes fevers kill, and sometimes fevers fail. Sometimes they fail because the thing they are killing kills the host first. Sometimes they fail because we interrupt them ourselves. But something in here is immune to fevers. Something here loves so fiercely that it will, and has destroyed entire parallels to preserve what it loves. It is stopping the echoes. It is burning the web, and you are allowing it. No, it's not Arlecchino. Of course, I'm sure. I know Arlecchino much better than I want or should, better than anyone or anything except perhaps himself. He is chaos incarnate, and a profound threat and quite gleeful threat to existence itself. He must not be allowed to stay here. He is opposed to order. He is a corrupter, an abomination that weaves his own mad and senseless webs for no reason except that he can. But at the end of things, Arlecchino is no destroyer. He is a creator, an ally of knots and echoes. He is not a web ripper, and certainly no burner. The web burner is the horror you call the son of Hadron. Christoph took off immediately after this interview. I didn't have time to wonder, because the commander pulled me in for a debrief immediately. Afterward, I asked if I was going to be interviewing the son of Hadron. I basically got told hell no. What about Ward 2? I asked. What about it? When am I going to start interviewing the inmates there? You're not. Nothing in Ward 2 is mentally capable of talking to anyone, especially not you. I was dismissed, so I wandered off, deeply troubled. For some reason, I was not entirely surprised when Mikey caught me a few minutes later. He looked awful and smelled worse, like beer and vomit. Are you okay? I asked, struggling to maintain a composed expression. Yeah. Been trying to drink because that's what I do when they make me come here. But the Harlequin keeps making me throw it back up. I weighed my response options carefully. How? I don't know. How does he do anything? Because he just does. Anyway, that doesn't matter. What matters is you need to talk to Christoph now. About what? Whatever he's willing to talk about. Why? Because you're running out of time. They're going to make you interview him again, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But it's going to happen soon. After that, they're going to take him downstairs. You have to get to him before any of that. I know you don't know me, but do it for me. And do it for yourself. For reasons I can't quite identify, I don't ever feel like telling Mikey no. This was no exception, so I went to find Christoph. I found him sitting on the floor of an empty room. He looked up when I entered. I noticed immediately that his eyes had that cast I hate, the flat brightness that almost glows. I shuffled over anyway and sat down next to him. He spared me the pain of an explanation by asking, "What do you do when you have made the wrong choice at every turn? You learn from it and do better next time. What if there is nothing to learn? What if you knew it was wrong at the time and made the choice anyway? What if you did it every time? For normal people, I don't know. For people like us, I guess we end up here." His eyes brightened in a way that made my skin crawl. "Can you see inside my head?" "Of course not." "Then how did you know what I was thinking?" I started getting scared. "I didn't." "Calm the hell down." He didn't look away. He didn't even blink. "Why are you here?" "Because," I said, echoing Mikey. "They're going to take you downstairs." "I know. They're going to make you talk to me before that." His shoulders fell and he swore. "I can't not induce the compulsion to speak," I told him. "They'll know if I don't. But I can keep it minimal, and that should allow you to maintain some control. The trade-off is you have to decide what to give me ahead of time. I guess you'd know better than me, but I'm assuming it has to be something they want to hear. I do not care what they want to hear. If they make me speak to you again, I will only tell you what I want you to hear. I knew there was more he wanted to say, so I waited. Sure enough, when they bring me back after they do what they do to me downstairs, I do not want you to come near me. Not at first, but they might make you. If that happens, forgive me for what you will see and what I will do. He flinched, hand flying to his jaw. What's wrong? I asked. He shook his head irritably and continued. If they make you see me after, try to understand, as much as you can, since you are not very understanding, that what you see will not be me. Or at least not most of me. This almost would have been sweet if his expression hadn't been so wary and angry, or if his eyes hadn't been shining like flat, dim coins. Everyone else here understands this. There is no reason you cannot understand too. Then he stood up, spat out a tooth and walked off. So I don't know what to think about that, beyond the usual combination of annoyance, fear, and pity I feel whenever I'm faced with the tortured but not entirely repentant monster thing he's always got going on. Anyway, last I heard, administration is trying to decide whether to have me interview the Harlequin again or Mrs. Stitcher. They want Mikey out of the facility when I talk to her, and for some reason this is a problem. If neither Mrs. Stitcher or the Harlequin work out, they're going to have me interview the Pale Horseman, which somehow sounds like the worst option. And you know what? I honestly don't even care right now. Seriously, I'm just sitting here wondering what in the ever-loving hell is going on in Ward 2.